back to the shed. So I'm going to carry on putting this engine back together. So I've cleaned I've cleaned this a bit. Got a bit of the old gasket off here, still a little bit on there, but I'm not too worried about that. So we'll just crack on, bolting bits on. It doesn't have a gasket. Better put some jam on it. But this is different jam. This is orange jam. It's still flange sealing. So if you want to see with flanges, phalanges. So as far as I can make out on this bike, most other bikes you can alter the timing, but as of yet I haven't figured out how you do it on. Well, I don't think you need to do it on this because it's electronic ignition, and don't drop your screws in there. Yeah, this is all dialed, so there's no adjustment really on the timing, or ignition timing that is. So I think the only way you can change the ignition timing is by putting a programmable CDI unit on it. I heard people use a Ziltronic as one of them. So I don't know if I'm going to bother with that. We'll see. We'll see how well it goes. So this side, you put your sprocket, goes on there, gear change linkage, and in this cover has the alternator, which generates the elastic trickery. And also what sits in here is the pickup coil. Pickup coil. One pickup coil. And what that is, that's got to sit flush in there. What that is that's a really sort of strong little magnet, and what it does is there's a little flag on this flywheel here and here, so they're for the 2 cylinders. So as that rotates past, as soon as it gets near it, it's obviously the gap is quite critical. So as it comes to there, that will give it the CDI unit a signal. Then the CDI unit figures out when, depending on what speed that's running, what angle to fire the ignition at. It's all clever stuff, and that's called a Hall effect switch, if you're interested. That's done, that's done, that's done. Next job. Quite important. That's called a Woodruff key, and that sits in that little slot there. So always make sure it's a nice fit. And what that does is that times this flywheel, which has got a little groove, or a little slot cut in it. So it keeps that in time with a crank. Okay. So that's all torqued up now. Last bit to go on. So I'm just going to wind the screws through a bit. I do tend to leave the screws in things if I can, saves you searching for them later. And obviously leave little cable brackets and things like that on. You don't forget to put them on. Okay, so what you can do is just make sure that your gasket is going over your bolts like that. You won't end up pinching it as you put it on. Okay, so that's that side done. Our clutch side. See if I can remember how to put this back together. So when I took this apart, I put a tyre wrap around it. So everything come off in a certain order. So if you stick a tyre wrap around it, everything should be. So obviously when you're putting stuff like this back together, don't just throw it back together, make sure, you know, check that things are right. If they're not right, put them right. So in here you've got a bush and that. You know, should be a lovely, nice fit on that shaft. It seems to be. So we'll get that in line. There we go. Also with clutches, you need to look for damage to these edges here. That's where the plates sit. What can happen is the plates and the basket have a little bit of clearance, but over time what they can do is wear little grooves into here, and that will cause your clutch to bind or, you know, slip a little bit because they get trapped in the little grooves. So just look for stuff that's worn. So what you have, this is a multi-wet plate clutch. So it's multi-plate and it's wet as well, so it runs in oil. That's why it's got little grooves in it. So you have a friction plate and then a pressure plate between each one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in as a pack, so otherwise I'm not going to get the middle in. Okay. again. Don't force anything down. Brown Mueller. A little bit of shop soils, but it's actually got, was brand new, but the person obviously hasn't stored it very well. But that's perfectly good enough for me. Right. Now in here there's a little tiny roller bearing, sight glass, and so I had to remove the roller bearing out of here. I'll show you how I did that. So what that does is that actuates the clutch. A little flat. It's in the box of the Ishra. So I kept that safe. So that's the little roller bearing that sits on the end of that. And this is the one I took out of my old casing. And the way I did it is, and you need a nut with a little shoulder on it. Alright, and what I did is I just ground that down, so you can do it on a little grinding wheel, or a angle grinder would do it, because what you want to do is just reduce that little shoulder so it's just smaller than that bearing diameter. Alright, so then what you do, got my old, I'll show you on this one. So that bearing sat in there, put that through, a load of washers on the top, because you've got a little gap underneath it, and you can put that nut in there like that, and then what you do is you do that nut up, and what it does is just pulls your bearing out. Ta-da! So now I've got to put that back in there. Okay, so putting stuff back in is relatively easy because it's just got to get tapped in place. And I'll use this shaft. Let's get in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to warm that up a little bit. So that's all in there. Lovely. That can all just get me bolts ready. So just go around and check your gasket's not caught on anything. Nice little reassuring clunk. Clean this up because it's a bit shitty. And then I'm going to make a gasket for it because our complete gasket kit didn't have a bore pump gasket. That's all right now. Right, my gasket. This is Prussian blue, which is an oil based paint. I find a lot of engineers use it. It's very, very good. If you don't like somebody, it's very good if you put a little bit of that, you know, I need a tiny bit, put a bit of that under their door handle for their car. They will look like a Smurf at the end of the day. They'll be blue on everything. You can do that with a marker pen, but this tends to show through a bit better. Give a little tappy tap tap. With me tappy tap tap. Ta-da! Right, I don't have a punch set to punch the holes out, so I'm going to make a little punch. All I'm using is an old bolt. Let's put them in. Now I need to make a little punch for that one. Move that down. There we go, it's got some holes in it now. Time to get the barrels on, I think. So I'm sure I've told you before, but we sent these away, or I sent these away, because if you have a look on a previous video, you see the plating was knackered in them. So these have been sent away, and all I've done is I've reduced these pegs a bit and matched these to the base gaskets. Gasket. So the base gaskets fit the crankcase very well. So all I've done, so I've placed that on there, and you can see now that it fits the barrel lovely. So we shouldn't really be getting any obstruction. Sharpen those up a bit. So what I need to find is the dowels that go in there, and then we can put the barrels on, put the pistons in first, then the barrels. Frank will put a number on there. There should be a number on this barrel somewhere. So there's a number on my barrel. So that piston has been honed, or that barrel has been honed to that piston. So that one goes with that one. One piston, little arrow on there. That little arrow points towards the exhaust port. Another little end bearing which I don't need. Let's check your ring gap. So put it in the barrel, put your piston in just to get it straight. And then what you're looking at is this little gap here. Can you see it? This little gap. You have to be careful doing this. So that's what you're after. Okay. Piston rings in. Gudgeon pin. So when you're fitting your pistons, get your con rod out like that and pack all that with a rag. Because those lovely little clips have a tendency to ping off, and the chances are they'll go down that gap. And if they go down that gap, unless you've got a magnet or a piston around, you're just causing yourself more trouble. So check your arrow. So when you've got them like that, you just need to push them in and make sure they go into the little groove. So it should snap in like that. Okay. If you don't push it all the way in, that pin will end up going down your transfer port and wrecking your new barrel. Next job, second base gasket. So these base gaskets, I think are £0.5 mil. I think they're £0.5 mil. So when we move on to the squish, we could adjust the squish by changing this. Make it thicker or thinner depending on what it measures, but we'll get to that in the next video. I think what I'll end up doing is adjusting the head. A bit of oil on the rings just to make them go in a bit easier. Don't go too mental. So, there's a little lead in on the edge of this, so what you need to do is you need to pinch the ring. What I should do is bring that piston out. Be careful when you rotate the crank as well, because you can damage your piston skirts. Right. So what you need to do is pinch the ring in, like that, and then try and get the piston in to these little grooves. You can use a spring compressor, but I can't be bothered because I don't have one. Right, so once it's just in the bore, like that, what I like to do is rotate this just so the piston's at the bottom of it straighten out. Because the danger is, what you could do, if you push your barrel on with the piston out like that, and it's twisted, one of these little piston rings can pop out here, out of the side port, and you could potentially damage your barrel. You don't want to do that. So, that's one barrel. Get it about halfway. So once it's on its studs, it's fine. I just things to be careful, really. Just take time. Don't rush stuff. Right, so I'm not tightening these up, I'm just nipping them down. My specially modified 12mm spanner, so it's been thinned out a little bit so it goes on a bit better. Careful on the gasket. Right. So that takes no effort at all. That's exactly how it should be. So there are your two pistons, and they're the things that give you all your power. So you can see that the ports are exactly in line where they should be. So you can change the port height slightly by altering your base gasket. But I don't know enough about tuning two-strokes to piss around with that. To put it in context, 3000 RPM, yeah, so 3000 RPM, this engine's barely, just over tick over. These pistons are going up and down like this 50 times a second at 3000 RPM. And bear in mind, this engine sort of red lines at about 11,500 revs. So you can multiply that by four times, is it? So at the red line, that piston's going from there to there to there 200 times a second. Right, that's it for today. Join me in the next exciting episode.